And so how did that process feel like to you? Like what was going on in your mind when you started, like your prospects were reacting to you in a different way?
I would say like there was a shift from, it wasn't necessarily in more like probing and clarifying. It was a shift from kind of taking a little bit more of a qualification authority based frame and just finding a way to get the same result neutral. And what that resulted in for me, and I think what actually gave me the results of my sales going up, is that was more literally energetically efficient. You got to think about it. I'm on the phone all day, every day, 5, 6 days a week, right? If I am burning less fumes trying to get the same result and in less time, I'm able to be primed for every call as well. So like part of it was like, yes, the process of refining and having something consistent to resort back to. I was already pretty good at probing and clarifying because I'm a curious dude. Point is like learning how to actually like use a neutral frame to still accomplish and elicit a commitment from somebody.
Let's talk about that neutral frame. What does that neutral frame that you've learned from NEPQ do to the prospect?
To me, the easiest way that I could describe it is it's a conversation. Instead of a conversation like me versus you, like a tennis match, it's like we're standing shoulder to shoulder. And what's funny is when you learn how to do it, whenever they start pivoting, you just pivot with them. So we're constantly looking at things together and like we have to kind of address it. Right. And the way that I've described it to others in the coaching is it's like I'm a contractor for a construction site and we're both kind of sitting there looking at what's happening, be like, what are we going to do about this? It's not like I'm not getting upset at you. You're not getting upset at me. It's like, hey, we got this land.
Basically, you're both on the same team. You're viewing the problems together from your questions that you've asked have allowed them to see the problems they have. So you're working on them together and you're basically coming up with the solution to solve them together. Yeah. Whereas most sales training, most salespeople have been taught by their company or by what I call the old sales gurus, that sale is me versus you, that I'm trying to manipulate you to take money from you to make a sale, where sales is combative, right? Or adversarial. That's what it's taught. But what you're talking about, NEPQ teaches you how to make sales collaborative, where you're working together to solve the problems that they just figured out they had from your skilled questions.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, it's not about you. Like to me, I always zoom out. It's like when really it's like for me, it's easy to remain unattached because it's not about me. It doesn't make any difference. Like my life doesn't really change. Like it's about like thinking about it. It's like if you are truly showing up for that person and the service or product you represent, it only makes sense for you to be a middleman rather. Like otherwise your ego is in the way. Like for you, you're a facilitator and an exchange. And to me, sometimes I'm like a conductor, right? Like I'm just around, right? It's like, I don't know. It's a sheet music. We're playing it. We got instruments. Let's do it. Right. Like,
yeah, because the way you look at it is you're there to help them find and solve their problems. Right. And it's up to us as the salesperson to do that. It's not their fault if they turn us down. It's our fault because we didn't ask the right questions at the right time in the conversation with the right tonality, with the right verbal pausing, with the right certainty in our voice that caused them to want to stay in the status quo. And because they don't move forward with our solution, their problems never get solved and they never get what they want. Right. And that's our responsibility as a sales professionals to help them see that, not by telling them that, because that'll just go in one ear out the other. Right. But by them questions that allow them to see that in their mind where they know for sure this is the right choice for me, and they internally persuade themselves.
Right.
Yeah. See the difference? Yeah, 100%. Hey, so I got to put you on the spot. What's one question you ask your prospects with what you sell? Because I know you sell like a fitness offer to get them to feel urgency to buy now and not later.
Okay, cool. To me, I'm going to go right actually to the beginning. It's a question that I get most people to ask and elicit. And it's something that I want to know is that we always talk about get the why now, right? So the question that I have kind of tailored over a course of a while that I find works quite well is what shifted recently that makes now a good time to X? Slightly assumptive because it assumes something did change. However, there's a reason they're on the phone with us. And that's kind of what I'm asking for in that moment. Because to me, life is pretty consistent. I'm looking for the peaks and the valleys. Whatever got us on the phone today, I want to know that catalyst moment. Because if I can start digging there, that's a great point to kind of expand the rest of the situation.
Okay, so that's kind of one of your first connecting questions, I'm assuming you're asking.
Quite honestly, yeah, that's usually why I use that quite often off a lot of the calls. Because it gets me right into the meat of like the catalyst, because that's what's interesting to me and how they respond to the catalyst, the fact that they're reaching out for help. All of the source energy is right there. So that's right where I want to go.
Because if they've responded to the company's ad that you sell for, that means what? They're raising their hand saying, help, right?
Yeah.
They would have never responded to the ad if they weren't looking, right?
Well, the double down question here too is, oh, I just saw the ad. It's like, yeah, but I say, we've been here for the last year. You've been in business. Like, why now? Right? Like, it's like I force somebody to get me that question because that is the urgency. I then learn how to then marinate that, grow it, cultivate all that. But like, if I can get that in the first literally 2 minutes of the conversation, I've got 30 to 40 minutes to plan how I can create urgency if it makes sense for the individual. But the other piece of this is if I don't have that urgency in the 5 minutes, why are we still spending 40 minutes talking if they literally have no why now?
Yeah.
Right?
It's really asking the right questions to not just find out their why. Any salesperson can find out the why, but the top salespeople, the highest paid sales professionals in the world, like yourself, that make 40,000 plus a month in commissions, they're able to ask the right questions in that conversation that find out what's behind the why. Not just what the why is, but what's behind the why. So it's like, even when you ask a question and, they give you an answer, about what they're looking for and all that, even if you just ask an NEPQ probing question, like, well, okay, why is that so important to you now, though? With that skepticism, that hooks them in. And see how of a small question that is. Hold on. Why is that so important to you now, though? Like, you're skeptical. Like, why am I even here? You're not saying that, but it implies that where they're like, oh, well, it's important now because of this, this, and this. So when you get to the end of that call, if it's a 1-call close, or if you get to the end of if it's a 2-call close, or maybe you're in a B2B more complex sales cycle that takes a month or 2 or 3 months or 4 months. When you get to the end of that sales cycle, they're then not going to come back and say, well, I think I'm going to do this down the road, because they can't. They've already told themselves they have to do it now.
And so at the end, then, just to kind of tie that all together with the right now, though, is I will then use the right now part as my way to double down on the urgency after I pitch. So I'll say the pitch and then I'll say something like, does that process sound like it'd be in alignment to getting to your goals? They say yes. And usually we kind of say, but why though? Or get them to defend their position or kind of justify their explanation. What I'll do is I'll be like, okay, and based off what I shared with you, what in particular makes you feel like it would be most advantageous right now though? And what will happen is like, they'll take all the things that I just shared and I find that they focus their answer on what they really want in January. And so then I will then use that as my little like treasure chest for later if they throw objections, right? Because now they've doubled down not only on what they like about the program, but what they like about the program right now, though.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I couple those together.
Yeah. And you can ask a really great consequence question, like, especially with what you sell or anything that's sold. But what if you don't do anything about this, though? Like if you just stay, I know so you're selling fitness, right? That's what you sell?
Fitness business coaching.
Okay. So it's how to start like your own fitness business coaching. Now, are these people already full-time coaches, or are they wanting to be a coach?
Yes and no. Predominantly the first one.
Okay, they already are full-time. They're just wanting to scale. Okay, so hold on, though. What if you don't do anything about this, though, and your business stays at the same financial level another 5, 10, 15 plus years? Hold on. What if you don't do anything about this, though, and your revenue stays the same the next 3, 6, even 12 months? What are you going to do then? See, it's like you're giving them a consequence and they say, oh, no, I've got to do something now, And it's like another down. It's like another double there where they just told themselves 3 or 4 times in the conversation why they have to do it now. And when your prospect tells themselves from your questions 3 or 4 times in that conversation why they have to do it now, why they have to solve the problem now, that means you've built a massive gap in their brain from where they are now, their current state or their current situation, to where they want to be. We call that like their future state. Now, what's in between where they are now and where they want to be? Those problems, that big gap of problems that you've helped them see. Now, most salespeople, if they don't understand the questions that we're talking about, Will, NEPQ, they can't help build that gap in the prospect's mind because their questions just are not that good. They're more logical. They don't bring out emotion. So now here's where they are. The price is here. It looks, the problem doesn't look that bad because they haven't helped the prospect see the gap in their mind. You help them see the gap in their mind. If they only have to pay this to get this, it looks like it's cheap. What are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. And like, how do you kind of like bring all of that in? And so like when the gap you were talking about right there, what came up for me is something that I have been working on recently with the NEPQ principles is like, what questions are not only going to be digging deeper into the why, but when you have a pretty good why, how do you amplify it, right? How can I coach others to help them amplify that gap? And so the things that I kind of come up with is probably the two easiest variables to amplify your questions would be adding a timeline. How long has that been going on for? Or understanding how it fits in the big picture, or bring in people other than themselves, expand the sphere of influence. Does that just affect you, or does it affect your partner? Does it affect how else does this affect more than just you? Because, we're social beings, right? So and it's very easy on a phone conversation to just be like me versus you, or in that mindset, because all they can hear is just one other voice. As soon as you remind them that their decisions affect other people, that also amplifies the stuff coming out of their mouth as well, as far as their insight.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's basically you're building that gap in their mind, finding out why they want to change. And then when they say a problem, okay, hold on. When you said stress, what did you mean by stress? Oh, okay. And how long has that been going on? Over the past 2 years. So that stress, has that had an impact on you? Oh my gosh, in what way though? Right? So you're bringing that out where they're just like spilling their emotions and everything to you, and you just met them 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
But they're doing that because they feel that you're open to them, you're unbiased, you're there to see if you can help them, not try to sell them. And because of that, they view you as the trusted authority who's going to get them where they want to go. And they'll pay anything to get results.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the NEPQ frameworks I find are just like, they're questions that allow you to kind of go through the layers of the onion, opposed to like guess where to go, right? It's like these ones like sequentially step through so that you can actually get into something of substance for both you and the person you're speaking with, because nobody really likes light, fluffy, boring, time-wasting conversation. So I feel like right into like, I don't really waste time, but I get into insightful, thoughtful questions, because if they're not engaged, there's no way there's going to be any transaction of trust or commitment.
100%. There's no winging it anymore when you involved in NEPQ sales training like Will's talking about. It's a step-by-step sales structure, from your connecting questions to your situation questions, to your problem awareness, to your solution awareness, to your consequence questions, feeding back what they said they wanted in your presentation, and then just asking a couple commitment questions for them to take the logical next step and either purchase what you're offering if it's a 1 or 2 close. If it's more of a complex B2B sale, smaller commitments to take the next step for a demo or other things that lead them to the ultimate commitment of buying your solution. That's how NEPQ is used. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on here. I know you've got some calls coming up. Any last words of advice for anybody listening here?
I feel like for me, I think getting into the NEPQ stuff is recognizing that it's like, it can be overwhelming to kind of make some of these transitions. The easiest thing is, it's like what Matt told me when I was getting used to NEPQ, and maybe I'll leave people with this, is it's like, okay, man, like I'm kind of working with this new framework. He's like, yeah, man, like you just got to use it like all of the time. And I was like, yeah, man, I am. And he's like, he paused. He's like, no, all of the time. And he was pretty much saying that like he uses, for example, like the 2 truth questions with his kids, right? And things like that. Because once you understand how they work in conversation, it gives you the ability to be more flexible with a prospect, because you can understand that's now where I want to put that little section in there, right? And so I would encourage people to like integrate it into every conversation and understand, oh, it works universally. And that's what allows it to not actually have to be overcomplicated. You're already doing it. Just like choose the pieces accordingly.
You're 100% accurate. I mean, the 2 greatest, both of us are kind of behavioral science nerds. Like my degree is in behavioral science and human psychology. Yours is in, I think, behavioral science, neuroscience. So we get that. We understand that, right? The 2 greatest communicators on planet Earth that I know of, maybe there are others I just don't know of, are Socrates and Christ himself. Because you notice they asked, especially if you're in behavioral science, in psychology, you study Socrates a lot, right? If you noticed his pattern, that's where a lot of NEPQ comes from. Right. You notice that he asked easy to answer questions in a step-by-step structure. Christ did the same thing, that allowed the person listening to come up with their own problems and view them as the authority figure that would solve those challenges. They didn't tell them what to do. They asked questions that allowed them to question their way of thinking, that's allowed their situation to keep happening. That's the difference with NEPQ and anything else. Wow. Will, I can't thank you enough, dude. That was an awesome interview. Going to have you back on here. Will is now our director of sales training as well. And if you are an NEPQ 3.0, or actually no, an advanced inner circle member on Tuesdays, one of the training calls that you're on are actually with Will himself. So congratulations for all of our Inner Circle members. And Will, thanks for stepping up and taking that role. You're crushing it for everybody.
Perfect. Really appreciate you having me out here and being able to share some things.
All right, my man. Talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.